Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Womb to Tomb Apologetics, where I teach you about the conservative, Christian, and pro-life worldview and help you learn more about your faith in the process. Today, I'm going to be addressing the recent debate from yesterday, September 10th, 2024, the presidential election between uh, uh, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. They just had their first debate, and my opinion, unfortunately for many, is that I think Trump lost. I think he lost this one. And I wanted to go over a few reasons why I think that is. So, first, I'm going to give a broad general overview, and then we're going to review about 12 clips from the debate and talk about what he could have done better. And through this, I hope to help you understand the ideas behind rhetoric and how to use it appropriately to respond to really, hopefully, general issues. Obviously, this is just a presidential debate, but these tactics and these tips that I'm about to tell you about will hopefully help you in apologetics as well. So, just kind of a broad overview of some of the mistakes he made and then some of the specific examples that he did very poor with. So, in my opinion, I think Donald Trump missed pretty much every opportunity he had available to him. I am frankly astonished that his preppers didn't tell him to, for example, stop using the Ralph Northam example, and we'll go over that clip later. But the Ralph Northam example regarding the abortion response, he has used this in multiple debates now. This is not the first time he's done this. And every time, it has been a dud. And the reason is he doesn't explain what he's talking about. Frequently throughout the night, he would ramble. He did not give coherent, full sentences to answers. He would stop himself mid thought and go on to another thought. And this is something that we can expect a little bit from Trump. Trump generally tends to talk this way, but he did this far more than usual here. He sounded, I don't know if I would say old, but he certainly sounded unfocused. And this was especially apparent in the closing statements, which we'll also go over. You'll see a very distinct difference between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Donald Trump was sort of rambly. He kind of did his closing statement off the cuff, whereas Kamala Harris had a pre-planned closing statement. It was effective. It was snappy. It went over all of her issues, and it also went over her theory, and we'll talk about what a theory is in a moment. But the Northam abortion example was not only a dud, but it was also the worst logistical example he could have brought up for the abortion issue. And we saw exactly why yesterday night, because the moderator popped in and piped up and basically just removed all the wind out of the sails there. And we'll see that happen in one of the clips tonight. Instead, he could have used the example of Planned Parenthood getting exposed on hidden camera for selling baby parts, for example, their organs and things like that. And he could have explained that, and in that story that happened a number of years ago, actually, that the people who exposed that by recording it on hidden camera were prosecuted, while the Planned Parenthood workers, one of which bragged that she would hopefully be able to afford a Lamborghini with the amount of money she was going to make off of that sinister thing, were let go. And guess who the prosecutor was who made that happen? Kamala Harris. And yet, nothing. He didn't bring that up at all. Additionally, her smile and cool composure while focusing on the American people contrasted quite nicely against Trump's hot under the collar attitude, his hunching over, and his red face throughout the debate. Thankfully, he wasn't like that most of the debate, but it did happen as the night went on. Additionally, every time she brought up her plans, for example, she kept mentioning her plan for America, plan. He should have told us that she is currently in office, and yet she holds these policies that she allegedly believes in hostage and won't do what she claims unless we vote for her. These are empty promises, he could have said, And we've seen the damage of her administration. She has no plan. Now, he does bring this up at one point, another point later on. He does bring this up a few times, but it's pretty short-lived and it's not a main part of his talking points. He brought up briefly in closing that she has no plan and that she could just do everything she's claiming to do right now because she's currently in office. He could have brought that up, but by that point in the debate, it was a bit too late, in my opinion. Finally, we need to talk about theories and themes. So Kamala Harris, as a former attorney, understands this concept in the legal profession. This is called your theory or your theme of your case. And this is basically the central idea. The central idea basically can be summed up in about 2 sentences, maybe at most. And I'll tell you what her theme was, and I'll tell you what his theme was, and I'll tell you what his theme should have been. But his winning theme should have been the classic Reagan one that we all know. The classic Reagan line, "Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago?" He could have said, "You've seen what I've accomplished under my administration, and you've seen what she's accomplished under hers. You've lived through both. Now it's your choice." He basically could have said something like that. Additionally, her attacks mostly relied on quotes from people. His response at one point was, "I fired people. She's fired no one." What he should have said was, "Notice how her attacks rely on quotes from disgruntled former employees." I mean, is it any surprise that a disgruntled employee would say something mean to defame his former boss? No. Quotes from random people don't really prove anything. The proof is in action and accomplishment. Look at what I did, look at what she did. Notice how this follows the winning theme or theory that I just suggested. Now, what was her theme? What was his theme? And then we'll get into addressing the clips. So her theme, she repeated this, I counted about 7 times, maybe more. She said, "I have a plan to lift up the people's plans and aspirations for themselves," basically the American people. So her idea was, I have a plan. That plan is for the American people. And then she said, he has no plan for you, and he's more interested in defending himself than you. So her whole shtick is going to be, this man is going to keep defending himself throughout the debate, talking about himself throughout the debate, but he's not really going to be talking about you. And wouldn't you know it, that's pretty much what Trump said the entire time. That's pretty much what he did. His main focus was on the economy. That was good. That's his most winning issue. Most people agree the economy was better under him. That is reported to be his best issue. So he kept hammering the economy, and his theme was basically, she has no policies and we're falling apart as a country. He kept repeating that. We're falling apart as a country. Now, the problem with that is that's a very vague claim. We're falling apart as a country. What on earth does that mean? We're falling apart. You need to be more specific. Now, he mostly tied this to immigration, illegal immigration, with migrants are running around. The problem with that is most Americans have not seen an illegal migrant and are not exposed to this. Unless they watch Fox News, for example, they have absolutely no clue that that's going on. Most Americans don't know what that is. Most Americans don't care. Most Americans aren't affected by it. So for him to keep hammering the immigration issue is something that plays well to his base, but it doesn't play well to the people in the middle. And that's exactly who he needed to play to, because he is about neck and neck. Before this debate, he was about neck and neck with her. So his whole goal should be to speak to voters in the middle. And he did not do that. He spoke to his base. I don't think that was his intention, but that's what he ended up doing. It was a terrible theme. What he should have done was brought up the Reagan idea, right? Look at what happened under my economy. Look at my accomplishments that I did during my administration, and just look at where you are right now under hers. You choose. That should have been his theory. That she is bad at managing a country, that he was good at managing a country. And there's no amount of scandals that she can bring up. There's no amount of attacks she can make about him or his rallies or his personality or any of these things that many people have big hangups on, especially people in the middle. Well, I don't like his personality. I don't like this. I don't like that. He just keeps hammering it on, right? I had the better America. I made America great again. I gave you a good economy. Sure, were there mean tweets? Sure. But which do you want? Do you want mean tweets and to be able to fill up your gas tank without going broke? Or do you want her administration? Do you want where you are right now? That's all he needed to say. But he didn't do that. So let's go over some of the clips. And in fact, before I do that, why don't I just talk about a little bit of the opening to the debate. So she made mistakes at the very, very beginning opening when they walked onto the stage. Donald Trump, I think, was trying a classic power move where he walks slower than his opponent. So he walked slow to his podium. And what this makes, it gives the impression of is if the other person reaches the podium first and he's second, it makes it look like she's waiting for him. And that puts him in a very good, powerful position because who is it that you wait for, right? If you're in a boardroom waiting for your boss, everybody's waiting. The meeting doesn't start until the boss walks in. And anybody who comes in after, they're late. But anybody who comes in before, they're waiting. They're waiting for the boss. So that was a good move. I think he was trying to walk slowly for that reason. Not quite sure. But she walked in quickly and she didn't walk to her podium. She walked right up to Trump and she shook his hand. So that didn't quite go super well for him if that was what he was trying to do. Not that it really mattered that much. It was just a minor power move. But she introduced herself as Kamala Harris to him. A bit awkward and weird because he knows who she is. That was odd. People noted that. That's about it. Super uneventful there. And then they got right into it. They asked about the economy. When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago? They asked Kamala. She rambled on about her childhood, then gave her theme/theory and attacked his alleged policies, including tax cuts for the rich. He was calm at this point in the debate. He responded to one of the accusations, but he didn't give a very good theory, like I said. She accused him in return of creating the effects of the pandemic, and she that she cleaned it up and that she has plans, and repeated her theory again. She also accused him of having something to do with Project 2025. Good for him. He dismissed the Project 2025. He said, I'm not associated with that, which is true. So he responded to that lie. He didn't respond to her talking about tax cuts for the rich. He pushed his plan to create a good economy. He also addressed the pandemic. That was good. However, he went on way too long about the pandemic and what he did, saying, oh, I accomplished all this stuff about the pandemic. That is an old issue. No one cares. No one cares. You shouldn't have gone on that long about it. He also accused her of getting bounce back jobs. That was good. Flustered, she repeated her story. He has no plan for you, quote. Accused him of tax cuts for the rich again, quoted economists saying that he'd tank the economy and that he's more interested in defending himself than you. There was a great rhetorical move. She was setting him up for a no-win scenario in response. So basically, if he responds to that by defending himself, he has fell right into her trap. This is very similar to a line Trump pulled in a primary debate during the 2016 election, where he said to someone, he said this about me, he lied about me, and is he going to apologize? No. What he's just done there is put his opponent in a no-win scenario. So his opponent can either apologize, meaning that he's just admitted that he did something wrong, or he cannot apologize, in which case Trump has just predicted that he wouldn't apologize. So he's in a no-win scenario. Likewise, she's trying to put him in a no-win scenario there by saying, well, he only cares about defending himself. He doesn't care about you. Thankfully, Trump did dodge this a bit. He did not take the bait, and he talked about going to Wharton College, which is one of the sources she cited as showing that his economy would be bad, and said that they agree with his plan. And he said that she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and then he stammered for platitudes. Let's watch that first clip where he does that.
Where we stand on the issues, and I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you?
That's just a soundbite. They gave her that to say. Look, I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country. And just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences. Like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something.
Okay. Did you hear the clumsy wording there? I mean, that was just, let's listen to that part again. Just that quick little part.
She copied Biden's solid money for our country. And just to finish off, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and work.
It's going to make people want to be able to go and work.
And create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country.
What is that? That's very jumbled, you'll notice. And this is a consistent theme for him throughout the debate. Let's go on. Okay. The next question they asked here was you recently, to Trump, said that you would double your tariffs. Many economists say that that passes prices on to consumers. Economically, that is true. That would pass prices on to consumers. However, tariffs do tend to have good effects in the long run if what you're trying to do is pressure foreign nations and things like that. So, there's some truth to that. Anyway, many economists say that would pass on prices to consumers. Harris says that will raise prices. Can Americans afford higher prices because of tariffs? It's a good question. He denied it and said that China would have higher prices. He said she didn't like them, or if she didn't like them, the tariffs, she should have cut the tariffs. But they're still there 3.5 years later. Then he hammered his economy compared to hers. That was great. That was fantastic. And then let's kind of see some of her response.
In terms of workers' rights. But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, exclamation point, when we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
So that was completely rich coming from a Democrat. Donald Trump was at the forefront of trying to pressure the world to turn against China. That was pretty much our only chance to combat China on the world scale. They are one of 2 of our big superpower enemies. There's Russia and there's China. That was pretty much our only chance to turn the world against China. Donald Trump was trying to, during that time of the pandemic, trying to put blame on China for the virus. He would go around calling it the China virus, for example. And these liberal, I won't use a naughty word for them, but I'll just say these liberal pundits and these liberal reporters would call him racist for this. They would say that this was racist to call it the China virus. So while he was trying to put blame on China, the Democrats, like her, for example, were all against it. They were all no, we have to protect China, we have to do this, all because it would score them political points against Donald Trump. So we can see who really cares about our nation. But that being said, Donald Trump's response is rambly, almost incoherent, and just all over the place. He just goes over like 5 different things, completely unrelated, with no context. No American who hasn't heard the stories that he's referring to has any clue what he's talking about. Listen to this.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to
That was a good line. That was probably his best line of the night. I should send her a MAGA hat. However, notice how he uses the word philosophy. Listen, he'll use that word again.
My philosophy, but if she ever got elected, she'd change it, and it will be the end.
But notice how vague that is, right? Now she's about my philosophy. What? What are you talking about? It's just it's so untailored. It's so rough in the word choice. I don't understand what he's trying to say here.
End of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows.
Now he's going after her for being a Marxist. Now that's true. She is absolutely a Marxist. What does that have to do with anything? What, like, no one knows that you have any evidence for that. It just sounds like a random accusation that pops up out of nowhere. She's a Marxist. Okay, nobody. You have to explain what you mean.
She's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country, and when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think.
And now he's talking about illegal immigration. The question is about China, right? The question is about China. He should be bringing up something about that.
It's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later.
How?
Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy.
How? Explain.
They have, and she has, destroyed our country with.
Notice his very vague attack against her, his very vague theory is she has destroyed our country. Explain. How? List examples. Tell us what you mean.
Policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you.
Again, a good response there, but that you'd almost say they hate our country. It's a very awkward wording. All right, next clip. They asked her about why he reversed course on abortion. Harris says, women shouldn't trust you because you've changed your position. Why should we trust you? He doesn't answer the question.
Women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, is doing an excellent.
Okay, so they have abortion in the 9th month. What does that mean? They. Who is they? What are you talking about? You have to explain yourself. You have to. There's no way around that. He didn't answer the question. He didn't even complete his thought. He talked about the 9th month, and he brought up Governor Ralph Northam. Now, if he had directed people to go to YouTube and said, people, go look on YouTube, Ralph Northam, abortion. Just look that up on YouTube. That would have been great. That would have been a great response. He could have just directed people. And there he doesn't have to spend a whole lot of time on it because people would just go and look that up. Oh, what did Ralph Northam say? Now, it's a bit hard to connect Ralph Northam to Kamala Harris other than, well, they just share the same party. That's about it. But really, there's not a whole lot else to say. That doesn't connect to her. Remember the example I gave earlier about selling the baby organs, okay? And how she was involved with that. That would have been a perfect example. It would have shown how wicked and twisted she is for doing something like that. And it would have been directly connected to her. Instead, he's talking about an example from years ago. No one even remembers, even if they did hear about it and they're not, pro-life. So this basically doesn't play to anyone but his base. He didn't explain the quote. He didn't explain the source. He says, that's why I did that, because that predominates. What are you talking about? Listen to this.
Job. but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice president.
Did you hear that? That's why I did that, because that predominates. Again, we understand what he's trying to say, but it's so clunky. That's why I did that, because that predominates. That's why he should have said, did what I did with abortion, fill in the blank, whatever, with some specific example, because that sentiment about children in the womb predominates, or something like that. But that's why I did that. We don't know what that is, because that, a different thing, predominates. Explain it. Then he brings up her VP. He says, her vice presidential pick says that abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. Do you have a source for that? Do you have, can you show us where to find that? I don't know what you're talking about. He also says execution after birth. Its execution is okay. What? He interrupts himself to talk to it's like, I don't know.
Presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did...
Okay. Now, he could have brought up an actual example. He could have said, her vice presidential pick in Minnesota, guess what he did? He repealed a law that said that you have to, or he didn't vote for a law or whatever, right? That says that babies that are born alive during an abortion that doesn't work, right? But they're born alive, they are to be given the same care as a baby that was born wanted. So they're still born either way. One was unwanted but didn't get killed successfully, and one was wanted. The bill would say that you have to treat both of those babies equally. You have to give them medical care. He opposed that. He said no to that, right? That would have been a great, specific example, right? He could pull out. Instead, he uses these very vague accusations. It's execution. What? What are you talking about? You don't even have to go that radical if you don't want to. Just get into specific examples.
There's something for 52 years they've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through...
Okay, again, notice the awkward wording. And I wouldn't be so just hammering him on this if it wasn't something that you'd think he would have prepared for. You'd think he would have prepared for this with perfect wording, with pre-made selected talking points. You'd think this would be like abortion. Of course they're going to bring up abortion. Here's your talking point. Here's your, now she sounds scripted, but her script is fantastic. He sounds unscripted, and everything he says is total nonsense. It's incoherent. He says, but what I did is something that for 52 years they've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. Okay, he's combining two sentences. He's talking about getting it into the states. No middle of the road voter who hasn't decided on this gives a rip about that. They give a rip about what their opinion on the matter is. And their opinion is probably something like, well, I don't think we should kill babies up until 9 months, but I also think that people should have a right to choose. I think there shouldn't be this extreme the other way. I'm kind of in the middle. What do they give a rip about federalism for? They probably don't even know what the word federalism means. Okay, and I know he didn't use the word federalism, but that's what he's referring to. They're talking about the states, they're giving it to the states. What does that mean to them? They don't know. They don't know what he's talking about. And then he goes on, again, who's they, by the way? They've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. Who's they? Tell us who they is. Is that the people you're with? The people you're against? Because nobody knows. Okay, let's keep going.
The genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices.
Now he's just talking about the Supreme Court justices. Nobody cares about their genius and heart and strength. What are you talking about? Is this relevant to everyday Americans? Notice her responses are all relevant to everyday Americans. She's talking about Americans. He's going off about the genius and strength of our Supreme Court. What? What is the American that's just choosing who to vote for see this as relevant toward? Like what?
We were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe
that's good. That's a good political move. It's good that he does that, although he doesn't bring this up later when it's absolutely crucial. But that's good that he mentioned it.
Strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do.
He also did a good job there of showing this isn't just, they're going to say I'm lying about it. No, look at my whole party. We've always been against these or for these exceptions, right? Ronald Reagan. Everybody knows how Republican he was. Oh my goodness, look at 85% of Republicans. This is not something she can accuse me of lying about or anything. Oh no, he's not really for the exceptions. Look, I'm just in line with my party. That's a good one.
Exceptions, very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years.
Okay, keep going.
Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote.
Okay. So here he does a good job of emphasizing agreement, I guess, among people. What he doesn't do well at is responding to her flip-flop as a Democrat. Now, technically, this isn't really much of a flip-flop, but that should be his whole point. And this is a talking point I got from Scott Adams, who is the author of the Dilbert comics. He has his own YouTube channel. Very smart guy. He's not a Republican. He's not really a Democrat. He's sort of in the middle. But wow, is he intelligent? And he brought out a really good point about this. Every time Trump is asked about abortion, here's his talking point. Here's what it needs to be. It needs to be, for the longest time, Democrats like Kamala Harris were begging and begging for people to be given the choice. They said, we need choice on this matter. The people need to be able to choose for themselves. And that's exactly what I gave you. I took it out of the federal government's hands and I gave it to the people. Now, notice he keeps talking about states over and over again. Worst language choice ever. He shouldn't be talking about states. He should be talking about the people. Now, these are interchangeable terms, but one of them is better than the other. It is a state's choice, but who is the people? Who are the people? Who are the ones choosing in the states? It's the people, right? So he needs to be emphasizing this so it sounds more individualized. It sounds like, wow, individual people do have a choice. Yeah. And look at how I gave you choice, and yet it's still not good enough for you. Look at her and her policies. It's still not good enough. I gave you everything you wanted. You said, I don't want Donald Trump in my uterus. I don't want him in my, my doctor's office. And that's exactly what I gave you. I gave you Donald Trump out of your doctor's office. I gave you people's choice. People in their own jurisdictions can vote based on their own conscience. I gave you choice. I gave you the choice. And Kamala Harris still isn't satisfied. Her bloodlust for the babies is just too much. She can't allow it. I gave you choice. She's going to keep rattling on about how I'm taking away people's choice. I gave you choice. I gave you exactly what you've been asking for. Donald Trump is now involved zero in the topic of abortion. I have zero say in whether you get an abortion or not. And notice how it's still not good enough for her. That's a winning phrasing. That's a winning framing of the issue. So he doesn't really address that. He says, but each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. Again, he's emphasizing the state, not the people.
And that's what happened. Now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had...
Okay, what does that have to do? I had courage in doing it? What? Nobody cares.
Great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in...
I give tremendous credit to the 6 justices. What? Who
Courage in
cares?
doing
That's not
it.
relevant
and
to
I give
Americans.
tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
Listen to this.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your...
Okay, this is another issue, and I will give Donald Trump something to work with here. This debate was 3 against 1. It was not 1 against 1. It was 3 against 1. The entire time, the moderators piped up. The entire time, the moderators sided with Harris. They gave her talking points. They fed her answers. They fact-checked him. 0 fact checks of her. People were saying there were about 4, 5, maybe even 6 times when they piped up and interfered, fact-checking him. 0 times. 0 times did they ever fact-check her on her many, 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 many lies. And we're about to hear just a few of them right now.
Response to President Trump.
Well, as I said, you're going to hear a bunch of lies, and that's not actually a surprising fact. Let's understand how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which...
First lie, Trump abortion bans. Trump has nothing to do with the abortion bans. Are they going to fact check her on that? No.
Which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even...
Prison for life for who? Who are you talking about? Doesn't specify.
Even for rape and incest, which understand what that means.
Notice he just pointed out that he is for these exceptions. So listen to her whole go on about this. And yet he doesn't respond. He doesn't go back and say, weird how she brought up this whole meandering story about incest and all these terrible things, which of course are terrible. And as I've literally just said tonight, and I'll keep repeating as long as she keeps repeating that lie, I am for those exceptions. So I don't know why she keeps bringing that up, because I'm for those exceptions. What are you talking about?
A survivor of a crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted?
Listen to her
Pregnant
drawing
women
pictures,
who want to carry a
talking
pregnancy
about
to
stories.
term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding
Pro-lifers are not against miscarriage care. That's a lie.
out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term. They don't want that. And I pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand.
He has denied that. He has said he will not do that. Is she going to be fact-checked? No.
In his Project 2025, there would be a national...
His Project 2025. It is not his Project 2025. It is made by an organization called the Heritage Foundation. He has, I won't say disavowed the plan, but he's distanced himself from the plan. He said, that's not my plan. I had nothing to do with its creation. I have nothing to do with its policies. I haven't endorsed it. I haven't signed on to it. And I don't plan to use Project 2025 as my platform or my policy list. Is she going to be fact-checked on that? No.
Abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages.
Now she claims that he's going to be monitoring your pregnancies and miscarriages. There's going to be like I guess some federal monitor tracking the women down. Another lie. Is she going to be fact-checked on that? No.
I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you.
Notice in his response he's about to give, He does not repeat, I am, again, for the exceptions for rape and incest. So she brings these topics up. Of course, they're tragic, terrible cases. I'm for those exceptions. So she's trying to scare you and listen to all the fear mongering she just gave you about something that I have repeatedly said. I'm for those exceptions. So what is she trying to do? She's trying to scare you with lies. Are you going to listen to someone like that who's trying to scare you and terrify you with lies? Is that what she needs to do to win this debate, is just manipulate people and try to terrify them with things that I myself have said that's not true? And then he's going to repeat what I was just talking about earlier, except this time again with major emphasis on states. He doesn't say the people have the right to vote. He says the states have the right to vote.
Vice President Harris.
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban, because we've gotten what everybody wanted. Democrats, Republicans, and everybody else, and every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states, and the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart, and they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter, because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it came to your
Well, I won't
desk?
have to, because, again, two things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50, and essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of?
Okay, so that was good. Now he goes rambling on about student loans, which might appeal to some young people maybe, but I don't see why he needs their vote.
They said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe. The student loans, and then I think probably her boss, if you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach. But look, her boss went out and said, we'll do it again. We'll do it a different way. And he went out, got rejected again by the Supreme Court. So all these students got taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea. And how unfair that would have been, part of the reason they lost, to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free. But they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with J.D. in all fairness. J.D., and I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look,
it was good for him to clear up.
We don't have to discuss it, because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans. What? They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. Well, wonderful. Let's go to Congress. Do it. But the fact is that for years they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government, and we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
He needs to be repeating what she said, but with clarification. She talks about the government being involved in your business. What did I do? I got the government out of your business, and I let you, the people, decide. Notice how he could be reframing the things that she's saying, but he's not doing that. He's talking about legal scholars. He's talking about they, whoever they is, wanted it to go back to the states. Talking about states? What are you talking about? The state is government. You sound like you're playing into what she's talking about. If you said the people of the states get to vote, oh, now it sounds more like, okay, yeah, I do have a choice. Yeah, I have like an individual choice. Sure, it's by the community vote, but I mean, I am a lot closer to having a decision over my body than before. That makes sense. Yeah, okay.
Vice President Harris, want to give you your time to respond, but I do want to...
Okay, and then here is where she was fed an answer, and you'll see that.
Ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
Okay, this is the classic question. Would you use any? And of course, the classic answer from Democrats is to not answer the question at all and instead say, I am for Roe v. Wade, which of course is very vague. People don't understand what Roe v. Wade did. essentially what that means is, yes, I am for that, but it's a way of saying that without actually saying that, because if you did say that, you would sound like an absolute monster.
Absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade. And
Okay.
as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not.
And again, she was fed an answer, which of course is extremely bad. The reason why that's bad is not merely like, oh, the moderators are helping one opponent or another by, influencing what people are hearing on the stage. It's not merely that they're hearing something from moderators. It's that they're giving her extra time, essentially, when they do that. When they give someone an answer, when they speak for them, they have now taken away 10, 15, 20 seconds, maybe up to a minute of information that they would have used to respond, and now just given them that. Basically, I get to give this opponent of yours 10 extra seconds of talking time, and I'm going to do it for them. I'm going to say, oh, well, that's not really legal in the United States. Now, instead of your opponent having to address it during the 2 minutes she has, now she gets that plus the 2 minutes that she has now to talk about anything else she wants. She doesn't have to address that anymore because you addressed it as the moderator. So it's extremely unfair.
Not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people, working women who are working 1 or 2 jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers, to go and get the health care she needs. Barely can afford to do it, and what you are putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America have not, the majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body, and that is why in every state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President Harris,
excuse me, I have to respond.
Very good response.
Another lie. It's another lie.
Another lie, okay.
I have been a leader on IVF with.
Okay, so he's right about this. She talks about him. Oh, he's against IVF. No, Donald Trump is for IVF. If you want to learn why that's a bad thing, go watch my video that I have up in the card above, talking about Donald Trump being wrong about IVF. Also, see this video where I have an interview with Katie Faust of Them Before Us, where we talk all about IVF. And I also have a third video here for you if you want to learn more about IVF and the Alabama ruling that they are referring to here.
Which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader.
So he's right here. He's calling her out, but he should take about 2 seconds to say what he wants to say there. He should say, yeah, she just lied there. She said that I'm against IVF. I am for IVF. So, in fact, I'm actually a very strong leader on that. I want to give people the right to have IVF treatments. I'm very pushing for that very hard. You can know that my administration will be pro-IVF. And then just move on. But instead, he takes forever to talk about it.
In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing,
I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF.
You should ask, will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask her that question?
Okay, that was a good move, but he doesn't press it. He needs to press that. If you're going to go for it and press until she answers it. Because now he's given her a silent zone. Now she pops in and starts talking about, well, why don't you answer the veto? If anything, he could, I mean, let's just say it's a lie. I don't think it is, but he said he won't do a veto, but let's just say he did. Give it up. Just say, yeah, I would veto that. Now answer my question. Even if that's a lie, just lie and let her squirm. Now you look even better. I mean, do something, anything. If you're gonna, just do some sort of tactical move of any kind here. Press her on the question of, would you be okay with a mother choosing to abort in the 9th month? I know you say that's so rare, that would never happen. I say that's so bad, it shouldn't happen even once. Are you okay with it? Yes or no? If a woman was standing here right now and said, I want to abort, I'm 9 months pregnant, I want to abort right now, would you be okay with that? Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes or no? And just press her on that until she says yes. And then just say, oh, well, there you have it. There you have it. And then move on. But he doesn't do that. Instead,
You
That's
answer
the
the
problem.
question, would you
Because
veto?
under Roe v.
Answer
Wade,
the question,
you
would you
could,
veto?
you could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th
That's
month,
not true.
and probably after birth.
That is true.
Just look at the former governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia said, we put the baby aside, and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President Trump, thank you.
We're going to turn now to immigration and border security. We know it's an issue that's
okay.
President Harris says that women
Okay. That's the end of the clip. Okay. Let me remove that. All right. The next piece we have here, basically about immigration. And he goes on about eating pets and things like that.
Former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem.
Okay, she says that she says that he doesn't want to fix the border. I don't know how she thought that was a good idea. I don't know what that's even supposed to mean. He doesn't want to fix the border. Since 2016, that's been basically his only issue. He won't even shut up about it in this debate. The border. I don't know what she's talking about here.
And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies. Because
Oh boy, this is the zinger.
it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter.
This
He will
is
talk
the
about
bait.
windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your
good.
needs, your dreams, and your desires.
good.
And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first. And I pledge
Wow.
to you that I will.
Vice President Harris.
Wow, that was excellent. That was an excellent. See how she went back to her theme and theory? This guy only cares about defending himself. That was what she predicted earlier in the night. Now she's made an attack against him. And what is he going to do? Is he going to defend himself and not talk about the American people like she just did? Yes, that's exactly what he's about to do. He goes right for the bait, and they even give him an out. Not intentionally, but they do give him an out by trying to move on. And he says, no, I want to talk about the rallies first. Now, some commentators have brought this up. This is so true. If he would have skipped the rally question and just said, or not question, but the comment and said, it's very petty. She wants to attack me for my rallies. We're not here to talk about my rallies. What are you talking about? That's so petty and weird. She talks about, he wants to defend himself. Sounds more like she's interested in attacking me for things that you don't care about. Do you care about, his rally size is this or that? Do you care about that? Not really. You care about, can you put food on the table? You care about, can you fill up your gas tank? And the question is, whose economy helped you do that? My economy or her economy? The obvious answer is my economy. That should have been his response. Watch what he does instead.
Thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to get your response.
Well, I would like to respond.
Let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so, that would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border?
First, let me respond as to the
Please.
rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies.
Oh my gosh, what just unbelievable. It's such obvious bait. It's such obvious bait. My goodness. I mean, it just hook, line, and sinker. He goes straight for it. Unbelievable.
There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's busing them in and paying them to be there, and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation.
Okay, he's going
And it
to
happened
Spain.
3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject. What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it.
Oh boy, no.
In
he's gonna talk about the
Springfield,
dogs.
they're eating the dogs. The people
They're
that came
eating the
in, they're eating the
dogs.
cats. They're
Look
eating.
at her laugh. Look at her laugh at him. She's laughing at him, and everybody else is laughing at him too. He's not contextualizing what he's saying. When you talk about examples, it's good to bring up examples. It's good that he brings those up. That's fantastic. The problem, logistically and rhetorically, is that he doesn't contextualize this. People who watch Fox News know what you're talking about, Trump. They know exactly what you're talking about. They know what the dog stuff is. They know about all that stuff. They know all of that stuff already. The people in the middle who don't know and don't watch Fox News have absolutely no clue what you're rambling on about. They're eating the dogs. They're eating the dogs. Let's go back.
They're eating the dogs. The people that
They're eating the dogs. What are you
in
talking
Springfield,
about?
they're eating the dogs. The people that came in, they're eating the cats. They're eating.
He sounds like Biden. He sounds like a guy with like Alzheimer's. They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. They're eating the animals.
They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our.
And who's they? Now, technically, David Muir does tell us who they is, but he also doesn't tell us who they is here. They? Who's they?
Country. And it's a shame. As far as rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase, make America great again. She's destroying this country, and if she becomes president.
Vague accusations of destroying the country. Notice this is the problem with his theory/theme. It's so vague. She is destroying this country. Explain how. Explain how. Now he's using examples, but they're examples. No one has any clue what he's talking about.
This country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, will end up being Venezuela on steroids.
Okay, but unless you watch Fox News, you have absolutely no clue what's going on in Venezuela. Go up to some random person on the street. What's happening in Venezuela? They would have absolutely no clue what you're talking about. Venezuela, I don't know. Sounds like a good vacation spot, they'd probably say. People are digging out of their trash cans to feed their family. They dig out of trash cans to feed their family. And even down in Venezuela, they are actually eating their own pets. This is last I checked, this was a few years ago. But they're eating their own pets. Now, again, if you watch Fox News, you know that. If you're not watching Fox News, which all the voters that he should be trying to appeal to here do not, then you have absolutely no clue what he's talking about. It's going to be like Venezuela on steroids. Okay.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio.
And then, of course, another fact check.
And ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Notice that they don't fact check Kamala on any of her, like, dozens of lies. But here, what Trump should say, and this took me a while to figure out myself, so there's a bit of room for letting him, squirm here and say, yeah, maybe he didn't know. But, he talks about the idea of, this was a city, what did he say? A city official, some sort of a city official said this. Well, what his response could have been here was, well, David, wait, stop. David. You're quoting a city official? A biased source? Of course a city official is going to deny it. The city official has a vested interest in keeping bad press away from his city so that they don't lose all the tourism and they don't lose all of the money that they need and that people don't move out. Of course he's going to say that. What are you talking about? Like, that would have been a decent response, right? To just say, oh, well, David, you're quoting a source that's clearly going to lie about it, even if it was happening. And Donald Trump, he says, I saw it on TV. Okay. But instead, what you could do is you could say, well, go on YouTube. Go on x.com and look up people eating dogs or something. Springfield, Ohio. People eating dogs. And I've seen the footage. I don't know about eating them, but I have seen there is a body cam footage from a cop stopping I think it's a Haitian migrant, illegal migrant, squatting over a dead dog that she killed. And she doesn't speak English, she doesn't know anything, and she took someone's dog and killed it. Now, I don't know if she was eating it or not. They were asking to see her teeth, for her to smile and see her teeth. I don't know if that was to look for like pieces of dog in there. They were asking her, did you eat that dog? She didn't speak English, so she couldn't respond. But they were certainly taking people's pets and killing them. We know that. I don't know about eating them. But anyway, though, the point is, that's, whatever. Anyway, we have a commenter here. Our good friend Nitty. Hi, Nitty. Good to see you. He says, a biased source, what the F, Springfield, Ohio is not a tourist destination or a high demand city. What are you talking about? And that might be true. I'm not saying that is. What I'm talking about is not, is that actually a good high traffic destination for, whatever. The point is just the rhetorical response, right? Whether it's true or not isn't really usually the focus of these debates. That both candidates are going to go around lying and misrepresenting and coming up with things. The point is to distance yourself, and the point is, how am I going to respond to this in an effective way? And obviously someone who works for the city is not going to want to have bad press about the city because that makes his boss look bad, right? So that's the whole point, right? And I know it's not a high traffic area, Springfield, Ohio. Nobody's going to vacation in Springfield, Ohio. But the point being, right, that it's just like, okay, how could he have spun? How could he have responded? Whether it was true or not, how could he have done that? And that was just all I was saying. Like, that could have been, that would have been a way to squeak out of it. I don't know. He doesn't do it, but, that's just one angle he could have at least tried to use to save himself. I don't know. But anyway, just a suggestion.
I've seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is
Oh yeah, I've seen it on television. He could have brought up YouTube. I think that would have been better. Everybody has access to YouTube. Nobody has access to television. What are you talking about? Which television show? When was it? Nobody's going to be able to look that up. If you show up, hey, look it up on YouTube. Chances are, even if you haven't seen it on YouTube, chances are any video you want to find is on YouTube. Chances are, if you look it up, it'll pop up for him. So he could have at least tried to say, well, look it up on YouTube. And 90% of the time, that probably would have worked. But anyway.
People on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
television. But the people on television saying their dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond to the rest of what.
Again, they don't fact check her, but okay. Anyway.
You talk about extreme.
Talk about extreme, exactly right. Just clowning on him, and he deserves to be clowned on for that. I mean, that's just, they're eating the dogs. They're eating the dogs. Okay, all right. Clip 5. She says, just basically, if you want to know about Donald Trump, just ask the people who worked for him.
The inside track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. Ooh. His former chief of staff, a 4-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. Ooh. His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the republic, would never survive another Trump term.
Oof.
And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are
Is
not
that
being
your theme?
addressed, I
Very
think the
good.
choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond
Yeah.
here.
Excellent. She brought back to her theme, says here. Again, she keeps coming back to that. That's very good. You always want to be keep coming back to that. Bam, 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 bam. I have a plan. Look at what he does. He doesn't care about you Americans. I care about you Americans. That's fantastic. She just did a great job. She's quoting people. That's great. Now, here's how Trump could have responded to this. This would have been a fantastic response. And she's doing this the entire time. Basically, all of her attacks against Trump throughout the debate are pretty much based on quotes from people, quotes from economists, quotes from former employees, quotes from this person, quotes from that person. She keeps using quotes. Here's how he could have spun this. He could have said, you know, notice how, notice how she keeps bringing up quotes from people. And in particular, she just used quotes from former employees, disgruntled employees that I fired, right? I fired these people. She doesn't fire anybody, but I fired these people. And of course they're going to be disgruntled. Haven't you ever seen someone who got mad at his boss after he got fired from his job? Of course, we all know that. And so she uses these quotes in these people. Let me ask you a question. Do you think disgruntled employees tend to say mean things about their former bosses? The answer to that is pretty obvious. Of course they do. So what do those quotes really prove other than disgruntled employees being disgruntled employees? What we need to look at is actual accomplishments. Take a look at my administration and her administration. She talks about, not using the rule of law, and the country's going to be a disaster if he's reelected, and the world war is going to break out. Well, hold on a second. Under my administration, we had 0 new wars. They kept saying, oh, he's going to have the finger on the nuke button. Never had one war under my administration. But look at her administration. How many wars popped up under her administration? 2. Not 1, but 2 new wars. Look at that. So you see how that could have been spun really well. He could have distanced himself from quotes and said, oh, these are former employees, right? So that could have been really good, right? If he would have focused on that part as there were some from the employees. We have a commenter here saying the quotes, from institutions are not the same as quotes from former staff. He says, also, Trump appointed them in the first place. It seems a bit odd to be in good graces of them accept, and then be disgruntled. Yeah, I mean, maybe that's true. Maybe that's not. I don't know if he was the one who appointed them or not, but if he was, okay. But the point is, people are only going to respond to what they hear. So even if that's true, and if he's the one who appointed them in the first place, the viewers only know what they hear, right? So as long as nobody brings that up, he can get away with it, right? He could say, well, those are disgruntled employees. Of course, people, when you get fired, you get mad at your boss. You say mean things about your boss. Of course. Well, that's nothing new. What is that going to prove, right? So that's what, rhetorically, again, we're not necessarily looking at the factual underlying aspects of these claims. We're not saying, is this true, or is this really the full truth of the matter? Is this leaving something out? It's more so about, how does this look, right? Because all of these debates are not really a matter of what's true or what's false. Most of this stuff is rhetoric, and it's about basically looking better than your opponent. That's really all it is. It's not about truth. Both these people are going to lie. Both these people are going to distance themselves. Both people are going to even dodge questions. I mean, you see this all throughout. Trump is dodging questions. She's dodging questions, right? It's not even really about like, oh, did they answer the question? I mean, sometimes it is, sometimes, okay, but it's about talking about what you want to talk about, right? At least for these. Now, obviously, in reality, we really want to care about truth, obviously, but this is, so I'm not trying to say, oh, it's okay to lie. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is merely, we just like, in a debate like this, that's what it is. That's what politicians do. They have to talk about the things they want to talk about and not answer the questions directly most of the time. So anyway, but yeah, so he could have gone that angle. He could have said, "Oh, disgruntled employees." What does he do? He and he could have brought up the 2 new wars under her administration, 0 under mine. Look at that. Ooh, look at that. See, who's really going to endanger the world? Who's really going to start a 3rd World War? Looks like my track record's pretty good. Look at hers, right? He could have done something like that. Instead, he talks about, "I fired people and she didn't." Okay.
Thank you, because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of the. Thank you, because when I hear that.
Thank you, because when I hear that. What are you talking about? What? What? What a weird opening.
See, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people. Not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. Okay. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the
Okay, that part's good. Talking about Afghanistan, that is a very weak point for her. Okay, fair enough. He's hammering that.
13 people who's were just killed, viciously and violently killed, and I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper, he was no good, I fired him. So he writes a book. Another one writes a book, because with...
Okay, this part is actually really good. He's talking about writing books. So he says, every time I fire someone, they write a book. Listen to this. This is actually really good.
With me, they can write books. With nobody else can they. But they have done such a poor job, and they never fire anybody. Look at the economy. Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you.
That's a good way to not have books written about. I like that line. That's good.
But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in...
Okay, where does this come from? I got more votes than any Republican. What are you talking about? What is that? What? It's like he totally changed subject just randomly.
History by far. In fact, I got more votes than any sitting president in history by far.
Okay.
Let me continue on immigration.
That was weird. Like, I don't know what the point of that last comment was, but you can see how it's just kind of spastic. It's all over the place. The next clip. Oh yeah, and then this is between clips. She brought up his felonies. He should have merely kind of just said, "Well, this is a witch hunt. This is a political witch hunt. You know, look at how they." Yeah, and you saw during my administration, they were witch hunting me the entire time, and then just moved on. Instead, he rambled on and on about it and wasn't very clear. The next question was about fracking, or it was about her policies and how she's flip-flopped. The next question was, you know, Vice President Kamala, you have said you were in favor of banning fracking. Now you say you're not. You said you were for a mandatory buyback of assault weapons. Now you're not. You said you were going to decriminalize border crossing. Now you're not. How can people trust you? That was the question for her.
President, you said you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't. You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Okay. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss every one of the, at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking, because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking.
Also, context for this, she says we're in Pennsylvania. Everyone knows if you want to win Pennsylvania, you have to be pro-fracking. I think Biden won Pennsylvania, even though he was anti-fracking, but essentially that's the issue for Pennsylvania. If you want to win Pennsylvania, you had to be pro-fracking. She has changed her mind. She used to be anti-fracking. Now she's pro-fracking.
I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States. And in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have had the largest increase in domestic oil production in history because of an approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hardworking mother who
it's a little
worked
weird.
and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager. The values I bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times, is a value that I bring to my work, to say we are going to work with the private sector and home builders to increase 3 million homes, increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is related to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather. And my focus then on protecting women and children from violent crime is based on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare is based on long-standing work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams. My values have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up and not beating people down and name-calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be that president.
President Trump, your response?
First of all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was.
Okay, so here he does address the $400 million thing, which she baited him with. That's irrelevant to anything. Although, he does use an expert response here by humanizing himself. But then he ends it with a brag, which is bad.
I was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him, but I was given a fraction of that.
Okay, so that was good. My father was a Brooklyn builder. And so he's talking about his father. He's talking about, oh, this is what he did. That's really good. That's humanizing. That was really good of him to do. But then he ends it with a brag. I made it into billions.
Tiny fraction. And I built it into many, many billions of dollars. Many, many billions. And when people see it, they are even surprised. So.
What? What does that have to do with anything? Who's going to vote for you because you just said that? Oh, wow, he made it into billions of dollars? Well, that really helps me pay for gas this week. What? What are you talking about?
We don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police, she's been against that forever. She gave all that
misspoke there. He meant for that for years.
Stuff up very wrongly, very horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies, like she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out. Wait a minute. I'm talking now. If you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar?
Don't lie.
She went out.
Okay, so there he was trying to have a moment. That was unnecessary. I'm talking. He saw his chance and he went for it. That was dumb. He was trying to use a line from her in her Harris-Pence debate from many years ago in 2016, where she would tell Mike Pence anytime he interrupted, I'm talking right now. That's not helpful here. It's good in some context, but that was sort of a dud.
In Minnesota, and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis, she went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a radical.
Ooh, notice how she didn't shake her head to that one. She's got an awkward smile with that one, because that's true. Although, again, make that relevant to your audience. Your audience doesn't care that she's doing that. They care that she's using their tax dollars for it. So that's what he should be emphasizing. She's using your tax dollars to give transgender operations to illegal immigrants. She says she cares about you. Sounds like she cares a lot more about transgender immigrants than you. That's what he should be talking about.
Left liberal that would do this. She wants to confiscate your guns, and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. if she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish one thing, so important in my opinion. So I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before. When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going up the roof. They immediately let these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher, because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump.
Okay.
But if she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead, fossil fuel will be dead. We'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar, where they need a whole desert to get some energy to come out. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar.
So he trashes solar and then immediately says, by the way, I'm a big fan of solar. What? What are you talking about? You're not consistent.
But they take 400,
President
500 acres of desert
President
soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not good
issues
things
that we
for the
have to get to.
environment.
We're out of
Desert soil? Why do you need desert soil? Like, that doesn't even make common sense. It doesn't make any sense. And just look at her face.
time. Thank you.
Lindsay, thank
She's
you.
like,
We have
I
an
am
elect.
totally winning this debate. All right. Let's move on to the next clip. We're almost done here. Okay. They talk about January 6th. Do you regret anything you did that day? He diverts to the border, and then she tells a compelling story about how she was there. Notice how she uses stories to paint a picture in the mind of the
President
viewer.
Harris to respond here.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the
Personal
vice president-elect.
experience.
I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the President of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. And understand, the former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated
okay.
situation. Let's remember Charlottesville.
Oh boy, as soon as I heard this, the Charlottesville Lie. Yeah, let's hear it.
Where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side. Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say, we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law.
Rule of law, okay. He looks like he's asleep.
And to end the chaos, and to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear on that point.
Okay.
Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking. Let's turn the page on this. Let's not go back. Let's chart a course for the future and not go backwards to the past.
Let me just follow up here.
Okay, so she just told 3 lies in a row, all quotes out of context. She says there were very fine people on both sides. That's what he said about anti-Semites. Not true. He did say the line, there were good people on both sides. On both sides. That's what he said. And a few sentences later, and he does address this, sort of. Although it's very clunky and it doesn't work very well, he doesn't say it very well, is a sentence after that, he clarifies very specifically, and he says, And this is an exact quote. And by the way, I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and white supremacists, because they should be condemned totally, end quote. That's what he says in the exact same speech. So he clarifies he's not talking about those people, so that's a lie. She says he told the Proud Boys to stand back and stand by. That is a true quote. However, although it is a clunky line for sure, the substance of what he was trying to say is obviously to tell them to back off, right? Do not use political violence. And then she talks about a bloodbath. This is the worst one. He said there will be a bloodbath if he's not elected. If you go back and watch the video, yet again, quote out of context. The quote was regarding the auto industry. Basically, he's saying there will be a bloodbath of the auto industry if Biden is elected. Basically saying that the auto industry will go under, right? It's a euphemism, it's an expression, it's hyperbole. He's not talking about a bloodbath of people. So again, is she going to be fact checked on any of that? No.
It was a different term, and it was a term that related to energy because they have destroyed our energy business. That was
What a terrible opening. It was a different term. What are you talking about? Term like election term, or are you talking about term like the word? I think he's talking about the word, but I can't even tell. They've destroyed energy. What are you talking about?
where bloodbath was. Also, on Charlottesville.
That's where bloodbath was. What? Nobody knows what you're talking about.
That story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people, they covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it.
They all covered it. He just quoted a bunch of Fox News people.
It was perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this. You talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate, because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border, because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The President of the United States, you'll get him out of bed, you'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you'll say, come on, come on down to the office, let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed. Those people are killing many people, unlike J6.
We talked immigration.
He talks about that for like a minute. He could have used 30 seconds, 20 seconds to say that. He could have merely just said, you know, she talks about this plan she has. She can do this right now. You realize she can just close the border right now. And yet she's holding you hostage for your vote. Very interesting. He could be saying that. But no. All right.
Campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Here she's about to use
Donald
some
Trump
massive
was
bait.
Fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that.
Ooh.
But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past.
Wow. Very, very good there. Clear, articulate, baiting him on.
And when you then talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did in fact lose that election, it leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact.
Poking the bear.
That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond, Mr. President.
Let me just say.
Okay. Now he's about to bring up a prime minister of Hungary that no one knows the name of. He's about to, well, we'll just let him
About
go.
world leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men. They call him a strong man. He's a tough person, smart. Prime Minister of Hungary. They said, why is the whole world blowing up? 3 years ago it wasn't. Why is it blowing up?
What?
He said, because you need Trump back as president. They were afraid of him. China was afraid, and I don't
So he
like to use the
cites
word
some guy
afraid, but I'm
from
just
Hungary,
quoting him.
the leader
China
of
was
Hungary.
afraid of him.
What?
North Korea was afraid of him. Look
are
at
you
what's
talking
going on with North Korea, by the way. He said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and Biden put
Okay.
it back on day
Talking
one,
about
but
the
he ended
pipeline,
the
that's
XL
good.
pipeline. The XL pipeline in our country, he ended that. But he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into
he's talking
Germany,
about
the
Biden.
biggest pipeline in the world. Look,
Talk about her.
Viktor Orban said it. He said the
Orban.
most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president. But when this weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago,
No,
that
he's
if he
talking about
weren't in that
Biden. Why is he
debate, he'd
talking
be
about
running
Biden?
instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about
that
a
was
threat to
counted.
democracy. He got 14 million votes, and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her. But
Mr.
he
President.
got
Who cares? Do you think any voter gives a rip about what Joe Biden thinks of Kamala Harris? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. Who cares? Is that helping you get voters?
14 million votes. They threw him out. She got
She just
0
smiles.
votes. And when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it, but
Mr.
I'm okay
President,
with it
Mr.
because
President, your time is
I
up.
think we're
Thank
going to
you.
do very well.
We've got a lot more to get to.
Turning now
Yes.
to the
Okay. He took the bait. He should have talked about 2 new wars breaking out under her administration. That would have been good. Then they talk about Israel and Palestine. We're going to skip that. That's not important. Let's see here. He did good talking about her skipping Netanyahu's speech, and Congress says that she allowed money to go to terror organizations. That's good. Then she says that he's friends with dictators.
you hate Israel.
That's absolutely not true. I have my entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli people. He knows that. He's trying to, again, divide and distract
Okay,
from
divide
the
and
reality,
distract.
which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known.
He could respond to this by saying, "Wow, you know, she said that I would be a name caller this entire debate, but notice how calling me a name caller itself is a name. Also, she says that I'm weak and I'm wrong and I'm a dictator. The only person who's been using names this whole time is her. You know, she points her finger at me, but she's got 3 fingers pointing right back at her." But notice her speech here. She keeps saying the phrase, "It is well known. It is well known. It is well known." This is very good. Repetition creates memory.
That he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself. It is well known that he said of Putin that he can do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine. It is well known that he said when Russia went into Ukraine, it was brilliant. It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un. And it is absolutely well known that these dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear. They can manipulate you with flattery and favors.
Poking the-
And that is why so many military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace. That is why we understand that we have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on
Vice
national
President
security,
Harris.
including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
They're the ones, and she's the one that caused it, that's weak on national security by allowing every nation last month for the year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime
Okay,
rates.
it comes back to immigration. Okay. All right, let's get rid of that one. So, again, he just misses every opportunity. He does respond to Putin endorsing her. She said, "Oh, all the dictators are endorsing him." Apparently, Russia, Putin came out and said he actually wants Harris to win. So he did bring that up, but he didn't really let it sit and impact as much as he should have. We're on one of our last clips here. Do you want Ukraine to win the war was the question to him. He did very good at responding, basically saying there's a third option. It's not about win or lose. It's about resolving the conflict. But then he talked about Biden again.
Well, it wasn't, because Biden had no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know if he's... Where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify
they
here...
threw him out of a campaign like a dog.
Notice
We
how
don't even know.
comfortable she looks,
Is he our
because he's not
president?
attacking
But
her.
we have a president,
Mr. President,
that doesn't know he's alive.
Your time is up. Just to
Nobody
clarify...
cares. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about that. Absolutely irrelevant to anything. And then she goes on, I think, and says, well, you're not running against Biden. You're running against me. The next question they asked was about Donald Trump talking about her race. He talked about her not being black or something like that. Let's listen to that. We have only a few minutes left of clips here. We got just a few.
In this country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, "I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black." I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't.
Now, his response here should be, well, I was asked a question by a reporter who brought it up. So you say, oh, why do I think it's so important to bring it up? I wasn't the one who brought it up. Someone asked me a question about it, a mean-spirited, nasty reporter who tried to bait me and ask these weird questions, completely weird questions about, oh, Kamala Harris's race and whatnot. I don't care. She's the one who brought it up. I don't care. I don't think that's appropriate at all. That's why I was weirded out by the question. And frankly, I'm weirded out by your question right now. What does this have to do with our policies? That's what he should have said. And he kind of gets to that, but he doesn't contextualize the quote.
And I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less.
Look at how she's
Whatever
smiling.
she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words, so I'm
I
asking...
don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out.
Gosh, don't go
and
about that.
I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to
Say
her.
that.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone
And then
who
she
wants
runs
to
with
be
it.
president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember
Talking about
how
the very
Donald
thing
Trump
she's
started.
doing right
He
now.
was a land, he owned buildings, and he was investigated
Okay.
because he refused to rent property to black families.
Okay, I don't know if you can quite pin that on him. He refused to rent to them. I don't know. That was a suit that was brought up. I don't know if they won or not, but anyway, just another.
Let's remember, this
comment.
is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 young Black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5. Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the...
Okay. I would recommend you go and watch Don't Walk, Run Productions video on this. But that is pretty justified. Now, again, Donald Trump doesn't respond to this. But the response should have been, well, the reason why I took out that ad was because if you saw what happened to this victim, this was terrible, and I'm for law and order. That should never happen to anyone. And these, she calls them the Central Park 5. Well, some of these kids confessed to doing it. Now, they later retracted their confession, but they did confess at the time. Now, whether they were guilty or innocent is a different matter. But they confessed to it, and that's why I took out the ad. Because if you confess to a crime, I figured, well, you must have did the crime. That's what he needed to say.
Same individual who spread birther lies about the first Black president of the United States. And I think the American people want better than that, want better than this. Want someone who understands, as I do, I travel our country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time who tell me, can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people? Knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Vice President Harris.
Very good. That was very good rhetorically.
President Trump, this is now your 3rd time.
This is the most divisive presidency in the history of our country. There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country, and they come up with things like what she just said. Going back many, many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park 5, they admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago, because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world.
Okay, he's talking
and
about
I'm going to build
economy.
it again.
You should be
it's going
talking
to be
about
bigger, better, and stronger. But
I
they're
had a platinum
destroying our
plan for
economy.
Black
They
America.
have
Go
no
look up
idea what a
Trump's
good
platinum
economy
plan. I'm going to
is.
reinstate
Their
that.
oil policy.
That would be good. Anyway, I'm going to cut that one off. We don't need to hear the rest of that. And our final clip. I believe it's our final clip. Yes. Yes, this is the closing statements. I didn't get all of his closing statement, but it doesn't really matter that much. I'll tell you what I think about it.
President Harris,
Here's her closing statement. Very good.
So I think you've heard tonight 2 very different visions for our country. One that is focused on the future, and the other
Notice how she looks into the camera
that is
almost
focused on the
entire
past.
time.
And an attempt to take us backward. But we're not going back. And I do believe that the American people know we all have so much more in common than what separates us. And we can
Going back
chart
to your
a
themes
new
and theories.
way forward. And a vision of that includes having a plan, understanding
plan,
the
a
aspirations,
vision.
the dreams, the
We have more in
hopes,
common
the
than what divides
ambition
us.
of the
Hopes
American
and
people, which
envision.
is why I intend to create an opportunity economy,
I intend to
investing in
create an
small
economy
businesses,
like this.
in new families, in what we
Investing
can do
here.
around protecting seniors,
there.
what we
Investing
can do
there.
that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of
Talking
living.
about issues that
I
matter to
believe
voters.
in what we can do together. That is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military, and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world.
Ooh, strong
I will be a
military.
president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and
Summing
not
up the
have her
winning
government
issue.
tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a DA,
Telling
I
a
was an
story.
attorney general,
Very
a
good
United
rhetorical.
States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them, are you okay? And
Very
that's the
good.
kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank
Wow.
you. President Trump?
Very good. It was canned. It was well prepared, but that was good. That was very good. It was already pre-prepared. Very good. She looked into the camera. Look at what Trump does. He looks at the moderators like he's been doing the entire
So she
debate.
just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things.
This is his best moment. He starts off with the winning theme that he should have been using the entire time, which is she claims to have all these plans, and yet she's in office right now. She can do all of what she just told you she wants to do right now, and yet she doesn't do it. Why? Well, either she can't or she's lying to you, and she's trying to hold your vote hostage.
Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should
Very
leave
good.
right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in
Look at how he's talking to her, not to the American people. He should be saying, she's not going to do it, and looking right into the camera. He's not doing that. He's looking at her. He's looking at the moderators. He's not looking at the camera. He does, and it plays right into her theory, which is that Trump doesn't care about you. If he cared about you, he'd be looking at you and talking to you. Instead, he's looking away from you and talking about her.
things like we're not going to frack, we're not going to take fossil fuel, we're not going to do
does hit these big
things that
issues.
are
This is
going
good.
to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year, they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it.
This is
we
true,
can't
but
sacrifice our country
people
for the
might not
sake
know the
of
story.
bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughed. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world
Sorry, this is lag on my end, not on yours.
like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of
It
weaponry.
wouldn't record very well. Okay, and that's the end of it. I wish I could have gotten the rest, but essentially he just rambles more and more. And that's how he ends the debate. So thank you everybody for tuning in. I appreciate you being here, and tune in for more. Subscribe to my channel. I have way more to come. I have a lot on rhetoric and how to rhetorically speak to your advantage in any particular persuasion you might have, whether you're pro-Trump, anti-Trump, pro-Christianity, pro-conservatism, pro-life, whatever it may be. So subscribe, hit the bell, support me on buymeacoffee.com, and thanks for listening. Peace out.